My name is Jake, 32 years old, and I spent a decade building my family's construction company only to watch my father hand the CEO position to my brother 2 weeks after graduation. The betrayal cut deep, but I found an unexpected path forward when their competitor offered me 5 times my salary for consulting work. Now, as I watch our family business crumble while mine thrives, I'm facing their desperate pleas to return. Let me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how I turned family betrayal into the best career move of my life. I grew up in a household where the family business was always the center of everything. Grayson Construction, founded by my father Harold 30 years ago, was his pride and joy. My mother Diana was always the peacekeeper, my father the stern businessman, and my younger brother Ryan, who's 10 years younger than me, was the golden child from the moment he was born. From my earliest memories, my father made it clear that he expected me to take over the company someday. "This will all be yours, Jake," he'd say, gesturing around the office when I was barely tall enough to see over his desk. "I'm building this legacy for you." Those words shaped my entire childhood and every decision I made growing up. When it came time for college, I specifically chose to double major in business administration and construction engineering. Every summer and winter break, I worked at the company, learning the business from the ground up. I started by organizing the tool shed, then moved to job sites as a laborer, then to the office helping with estimates. By my senior year, I could run small projects from start to finish. Some of my fondest childhood memories are of my dad taking me to construction sites on Saturday mornings. He'd point out the different stages of building, explain why certain materials were chosen, and introduce me to the foremen and workers. "This is my boy Jake," he'd say proudly. "He'll be your boss someday, so treat him right." Everyone would laugh, but the message was clear. I was being groomed for leadership. Ryan, on the other hand, had a completely different childhood experience. Born when I was already 10, he became the baby of the family who could do no wrong. Where I faced consequences for my mistakes, Ryan's were brushed aside with comments like "he's just a kid," or "boys will be boys." When I got a B+ in math, my father lectured me about the importance of excellence. When Ryan barely passed his classes, he got praised for doing his best. My mother Diana tried to balance things out. "Your father is harder on you because he sees himself in you," she'd tell me. "He knows you're capable of greatness." I believed her because I wanted to. But the disparity in how we were treated was impossible to ignore. Despite the obvious favoritism, I loved my brother. When I'd come home from college, I'd bring him small gifts and spend time teaching him things. I showed him how to throw a football properly, helped with his homework, and even covered for him a few times when he broke house rules. I was determined to be the best big brother I could be, even if our parents treated us differently. When I graduated with honors, I had job offers from several prestigious construction firms across the country. The starting salaries were impressive, and the opportunities for advancement were clear. My roommates thought I was crazy when I turned them all down to go work for my dad at a significantly lower salary. "It's an investment in my future," I explained. "I'll be running that company someday." Working with my father full-time proved challenging from day one. In college, my professors had praised my innovative thinking and problem-solving abilities. At Grayson Construction, those same qualities often met with resistance from my father. "We've always done it this way," was his standard response to my suggestions. My mother continued her role as mediator between us. "Your father built this company from nothing," she'd remind me during our private conversations after particularly heated arguments. "Try to understand that change is difficult for him." I'd nod and promise to be more patient, even as frustration built inside me. Harold was a difficult boss for everyone, not just me. His management style was authoritarian and uncompromising. He demanded perfection, criticized harshly, and rarely offered praise. Longtime employees had grown accustomed to his ways, but turnover among newer hires was high. I watched talented people leave because they couldn't tolerate his leadership, and I promised myself that when my time came to lead, I'd create a different kind of workplace culture. Looking back, I can see how those early experiences shaped me. Every challenge with my father, every instance of watching Ryan get special treatment, Every moment of feeling undervalued despite my contributions, they were all preparing me for what was to come, though I couldn't have imagined exactly how everything would unfold. At 22, fresh out of college with 2 degrees and full of ambition, I officially started my career at Grayson Construction. Despite my years of part-time work and internships, my father insisted I begin as a project coordinator, several levels below where my qualifications should have placed me. "You need to earn respect, not have it handed to you because you're the owner's son," he explained. While I understood the principle, I couldn't help but feel he was intentionally making things harder for me. The first year was brutal. I worked 70-hour weeks, handling the most tedious administrative tasks, while also trying to prove myself on project sites. Senior managers, many who had known me since childhood, were reluctant to take direction from Harold's kid. I had to fight for every ounce of respect and authority. There were nights I drove home, pulled into my apartment parking lot, and just sat in my car, too exhausted to even make it inside. Then came the financial crisis of 2008. The construction industry was hit particularly hard, and Grayson Construction wasn't immune. Projects were canceled, clients couldn't secure financing, and for the first time in the company's history, we had to lay people off. I watched my father age 10 years and 6 months as he struggled to keep the business afloat. During a particularly bleak quarterly review meeting, I spoke up with an idea I'd been researching for months. "We need to pivot toward green building and energy efficiency retrofits," I said, spreading out the market analysis I'd prepared on my own time. Federal stimulus money is flowing into sustainable construction, and tax incentives for energy-efficient upgrades are making these projects affordable, even in a down economy. My father scoffed initially. "People want traditional construction at the lowest possible price right now. This eco-friendly nonsense is a luxury market we can't count on." But I was prepared. I showed him the numbers, the projections, the government programs, and the growing list of corporations committing to reducing their carbon footprints. "This isn't just about saving the planet, Dad. It's about saving our company." After 2 weeks of relentless persuasion and refining the proposal, he finally gave me a grudging green light to pursue a small pilot project. I threw myself into it completely, working around the clock to ensure its success. When that first green building project came in under budget and ahead of schedule, with the client so pleased they immediately contracted us for 2 more projects, even my father had to admit I might be onto something. Over the next 3 years, we transitioned nearly 60% of our business to green building and energy retrofits. I became certified in LEED construction standards and made sure our key team members received proper training too. We hired specialists in solar installation, geothermal heating systems, and sustainable materials. The company not only survived the recession, it thrived when many competitors failed. As our reputation for quality, sustainable construction grew, so did my responsibilities. Without any official promotion or title change, I found myself overseeing operations, developing client relationships, and managing increasingly larger projects. By my 28th birthday, I was effectively running day-to-day operations while my father focused on big-picture strategy and maintaining relationships with our longest-standing clients. The Riverside Corporate Park was my crowning achievement during this period. A 12-building complex built to the highest environmental standards, featuring solar arrays, rainwater collection systems, and state-of-the-art energy management. We beat out 6 larger companies for the contract, largely based on the innovative design and construction methods I proposed. The project won regional awards and was featured in industry magazines. The client contact specifically mentioned my leadership as key to the project's success. Throughout this time, I built a core team of dedicated professionals who shared my vision for the company. Marcus became our financial director after I recognized his talent for finding cost efficiencies without sacrificing quality. Stephanie, who I recruited from a competing firm, revolutionized our project management systems. Thomas, a veteran superintendent who initially resisted the green building transition, became our most vocal advocate for sustainable practices after seeing the results firsthand. Together, we created a more collaborative culture within the company. Weekly team meetings replaced my father's top-down directives. We implemented an employee suggestion program that generated valuable innovations. Turnover dropped dramatically, and we started attracting top talent who wanted to be part of what we were building. My relationship with employees was built on mutual respect. I learned everyone's names, remembered details about their families, and made sure they knew their contributions were valued. When Jerry's daughter was hospitalized, I personally ensured his job and salary were secure while he took time off to be with her. When Maria needed flexible hours to complete her master's degree, we adjusted her schedule. These weren't just kindnesses, they were investments in our people that paid dividends in loyalty and dedication. Clients responded to our new approach too. They appreciated my accessibility, detailed knowledge of their projects, and problem-solving orientation. Many began specifically requesting that I oversee their projects, which secretly pleased my father, even as he pretended to be the one still running everything. Looking back at those years, I realize I was doing everything a company president or CEO would do, just without the title or compensation to match. I was putting in the hours, making the hard decisions, building the team, and securing the future of Grayson Construction. I genuinely believed that my father saw what I was accomplishing, and that formal recognition was just around the corner. I couldn't have been more wrong. After 3 years of essentially running Grayson Construction, driving our profits to record heights, and establishing us as a leader in sustainable building, I decided it was time to formalize my role. I prepared a detailed presentation outlining my contributions, the company's growth under my leadership, and comparable compensation packages for executives in similar positions at other construction firms. I proposed the title of Chief Operating Officer and a salary increase that, while substantial, was still well below market rate for the responsibilities I was handling. I scheduled a meeting with my father, feeling confident that he would recognize the fairness of my request. After all, the evidence of my value to the company was undeniable. The numbers spoke for themselves. "I appreciate your ambition, Jake," he said after I finished my presentation, "but I don't think you're quite ready for this step. Give it another year or two." I was stunned. "Dad, I'm already doing this job. I have been for years. I'm just asking for the title and compensation that match my responsibilities." "Running a family business isn't just about who does what," he replied dismissively. "It's about timing, tradition, and looking at the big picture. Trust me on this." Disappointed but not defeated, I continued working just as hard. 6 months later, after landing the largest contract in company history, I tried again. This time I brought market research showing that we were at risk of losing key employees, including myself, because our compensation wasn't competitive. "The company is still recovering from the recession," my father claimed, though our financial statements clearly showed otherwise. "We need to be conservative with spending. Maybe next year." By the third attempt, 1 year later, I was running out of patience. Our revenue had doubled under my leadership. I had personally secured partnerships with 4 major developers who specifically wanted to work with us because of our reputation for quality and innovation, a reputation I had built. Meanwhile, I was making a fraction of what I could earn elsewhere, with no official recognition of my role. The meeting quickly became heated. "What exactly are you waiting for, Dad?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice level. "I've proven myself in every possible way. What more do you need to see?" Harold leaned back in his chair, looking irritated. "This attitude is exactly why you're not ready for a promotion. You're too emotional, too focused on personal recognition. You're just doing your job, Jake. That's what you're paid for." "My job? Dad, I'm doing your job. I'm doing the CFO's job. I'm doing jobs we don't even have official titles for, and I'm doing them all exceptionally well. This company is the family legacy," he said, his voice rising. "Your inheritance. Everything I've built will be yours someday. Isn't that enough? Do you have to demand more right now?" I took a deep breath. "I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for fair compensation for the value I bring to this company right now, not someday. Other companies would pay me 3 times what I'm making here for the work I'm doing." "Then go work for them if money is all you care about," he snapped. That comment stung more than he could know. Money had never been my primary motivation. I had turned down higher-paying jobs to work for our family business. I had poured my heart and soul into Grayson Construction because I believed in what we were building together. To have that dedication thrown back in my face as mere greed was profoundly unfair. About a month after this disappointing exchange, Ryan graduated from college with a business administration degree. His grades were average, mostly B's and C's, and he had no practical experience in construction or project management. Unlike me, he hadn't spent his summers working for the company. He'd interned briefly at a friend's marketing firm and spent most of his free time enjoying the college experience. Our family gathered for dinner to celebrate his graduation. Harold raised his glass in a toast. To Ryan, the newest business mind in the Grayson family. We can't wait to see what you'll contribute to the company. I smiled and congratulated my brother, genuinely happy for him. Despite our different treatment growing up, I had never resented Ryan personally. He was a good kid who happened to be born into a fortunate position as the family favorite. That wasn't his fault. 2 weeks later, my father called an all-hands meeting for the entire company. This was unusual. We typically held departmental meetings rather than gathering all 60 employees at once. I assumed it was to announce a major new project, or perhaps a company restructuring I'd been suggesting to improve efficiency. I couldn't have been more wrong. I have an exciting announcement, my father began, standing at the front of our conference room with Ryan beside him. As many of you know, my son Ryan recently graduated with a business degree. Today, I'm proud to announce that he will be joining Grayson Construction as our new Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately. The room fell silent. I felt as though someone had punched me in the stomach. Every eye in the room turned toward me, sitting in the front row, completely blindsided by this announcement. Ryan brings fresh perspectives and innovative ideas that will lead us into the future, Harold continued, either oblivious to or deliberately ignoring the shock on my face. Jake will continue in his current role, providing his valuable expertise in project management and sustainable building practices. My current role, the role that had never been officially defined or properly compensated, the role that encompassed everything from operations management to business development to financial oversight. And now, I would be doing all of that under my inexperienced brother's direction. I somehow made it through the rest of the meeting on autopilot, nodding mechanically when addressed, avoiding eye contact with colleagues whose expressions ranged from pity to discomfort to outright disbelief. When the meeting concluded, I slipped out a side door before anyone could approach me. I needed to be alone, to process what had just happened, and to decide what to do next. That night, I sat in my apartment with a glass of whiskey, staring at the wall. 10 years of dedication, of sacrificed opportunities, of believing in the promise that someday the company would be mine. All of it had been a lie. My father had never intended for me to lead. I was just the workhorse, valuable for my labor but not for my leadership, and now I would be expected to train and support Ryan as he stepped into the role I had earned many times over. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Ryan took to his new role with the confidence of someone who had never experienced failure. Within his first week as CEO, he had redecorated the executive office with expensive modern furniture, ordered a new company car, a luxury SUV that cost nearly twice what my practical sedan had, and announced a company-wide party to usher in the new era of Grayson Construction. At that party, I stood in the corner nursing a beer, watching as employees cautiously approached Ryan to offer congratulations. Many of them shot sympathetic glances in my direction when they thought I wasn't looking. Marcus, our financial director and one of my closest allies, eventually made his way to my side. "This is temporary," he said quietly. "Everyone knows who really runs this place." I appreciated the sentiment, but I wasn't so sure. My father had made his choice clear, and the company letterhead now featured Ryan's name with the CEO title beneath it. Despite my personal hurt, I tried to support my brother during his transition. I prepared detailed briefings on all our active projects, created summaries of our client relationships, and made myself available whenever he had questions, which, surprisingly, wasn't often. "I've got this, Jake," he said dismissively when I offered to walk him through our bidding process. "Business is business. I learned all this in school." His first major decision came 3 weeks into his tenure. Without consulting me or any of the project managers, Ryan announced that Grayson Construction would be pursuing casino development projects, a sector we had deliberately avoided due to its volatility, regulatory complications, and the often questionable financing involved. Casino projects are where the real money is, he declared during a management meeting. We're thinking too small with these office buildings and energy retrofits. Ryan, I said carefully, casino projects require specialized experience we don't have. The licensing alone would take months, and the bonding requirements would stretch our financial capacity. That's the kind of risk-averse thinking that's holding this company back, he replied, glancing at our father for approval. Harold nodded, clearly pleased with Ryan's supposed boldness. This became a pattern. Ryan would propose an ill-conceived initiative, I would raise practical concerns based on my years of experience, and he would dismiss me as being stuck in the past or afraid of innovation. My father, rather than mediating these disagreements based on business merit, consistently supported Ryan's position. After one particularly frustrating meeting, Ryan cornered me in the hallway. I know what you're doing, he said, his voice low. You're trying to undermine me because you're jealous. Dad warned me you might not be a team player. I was speechless. Not only was I being accused of sabotage for offering legitimate business advice, but apparently my father had been poisoning the well, preparing Ryan to see me as an adversary rather than an ally. That evening I visited my parents' home to speak with my mother. Diana had always been more reasonable, more willing to acknowledge my contributions to the company. Mom, this isn't working, I told her as we sat on the back porch. Ryan has no idea what he's doing, and Dad's letting him make decisions that could seriously damage the company. She sighed, looking older than her years. Your brother needs time to find his footing, Jake. And your father, well, you know how much it means to him to see Ryan succeed. What about me? What about what I've built? Family is complicated, she said, patting my hand. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the people we love. The implication was clear. My sacrifice was expected. My brother's success was paramount. The family dynamic that had defined my childhood was now shaping my professional life as well. Things deteriorated rapidly over the next few months. Ryan hired several of his college friends for positions they weren't qualified for, including a former roommate as purchasing manager. Suddenly, we were buying materials from suppliers I'd never heard of, at prices well above what we'd previously paid. When Stephanie, my project management specialist, raised concerns about quality control issues with these new suppliers, Ryan accused her of being difficult. 2 weeks later, he fired her, claiming personality conflicts and resistance to new leadership. Thomas, our veteran superintendent who had been with the company for 15 years, was the next to go after he refused to certify work that didn't meet code requirements on one of Ryan's rushed projects. Ryan replaced him with a more compliant but less experienced superintendent who was willing to cut corners. I was losing allies by the day, watching the company culture I'd carefully built crumble under my brother's impulsive leadership. When I tried to discuss these issues with my father, he brushed them aside. Ryan's making necessary changes, Harold insisted. Change is always uncomfortable. You need to get on board or get out of the way. Marcus, still hanging on as financial director but increasingly marginalized, secretly showed me the company's financial statements. What I saw alarmed me. Cash flow problems, increasing debt, declining profit margins. Ryan was spending money we didn't have on expansions we weren't ready for, while basic operational efficiency was suffering. The crisis point came when we lost the bid for the Westview Office Park, a project that should have been a guaranteed win given our track record and relationships. I later learned that Ryan had decided to increase our profit margin on the bid to what the project was really worth, ignoring my carefully calibrated understanding of what the market would bear. That same week, we received notification that one of our current projects was being audited due to compliance concerns. The client, a long-standing partner who had always trusted our work, had become suspicious after interactions with Ryan, led them to question our attention to detail. As I watched the company I loved, the company I had helped build, begin to falter under my brother's leadership, I felt both heartbroken and vindicated. Everything I had predicted was coming to pass, but there was no satisfaction in being right. These were people's livelihoods at stake, including my own. I was trapped in an impossible situation. Stay and watch the slow-motion collapse while being increasingly sidelined, or leave and abandon the company that, despite everything, still felt like mine, in all the ways that mattered. The decision was made for me in the most unexpected way. The call came on a Tuesday morning. I was reviewing a troubled project, trying to salvage what I could after Ryan's mismanagement, when my personal cell phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Jake Grayson speaking," I answered, distracted by the mess of papers on my desk. "Mr. Grayson, this is Catherine Wilson, CEO of Evergreen Construction. I was wondering if you might be available for lunch today." I nearly dropped the phone. Evergreen was our main competitor in the sustainable building space, a company I had studied and respected for years. Catherine Wilson was something of a legend in the industry, having built her company from scratch into one of the region's premier construction firms. Yes, I think I could arrange that," I replied, my mind racing. We met at a small restaurant far from our office, where there was little chance of being seen by anyone from Grayson Construction. Catherine was direct and professional, wasting no time on small talk. "I'll be blunt, Jake. We've been watching the situation at Grayson Construction with interest. Your father's decision to install your inexperienced brother as CEO has been, let's call it a topic of discussion in industry circles." I shifted uncomfortably. It was one thing to know that our internal drama was affecting the company. It was another to realize that our competitors were aware of it too. "I'm not here to gossip," she continued. "I'm here to make you an offer. Evergreen would like to bring you on as a consultant. Your expertise in sustainable building is unmatched, and frankly, we think your talents are being wasted in your current situation." "A consultant?" I repeated, surprised. "Yes. With a compensation package 5 times what we estimate you're currently making, based on industry standards and Grayson's known salary structure." She slid a folder across the table. Inside was a formal offer letter with a number that made my eyes widen. It was more than I'd ever asked my father for, more than I'd even dreamed of making at this stage in my career. "Why not just hire me full-time?" I asked. Catherine smiled. 2 reasons. First, the consulting arrangement gives you more freedom and potentially allows you to maintain family relationships that might be severed by a direct move to a competitor. Second, it gives us both a chance to see if there's a good fit for a more permanent arrangement down the line. It was a generous offer and a thoughtful approach. Still, the idea of leaving Grayson Construction, despite everything, felt like tearing out a part of myself. I told Catherine I needed time to think. That night was one of the longest of my life. I paced my apartment, weighing loyalty against opportunity, family ties against professional respect. I made pro and con lists. I called my closest friend from college, now working on the East Coast, who listened patiently before offering his perspective. "Jake, you've given that company 10 years of your life. They've consistently undervalued you, and now they've humiliated you. What exactly do you owe them at this point?" His words struck home. What did I owe a father who had broken his promises? What did I owe a brother who saw me as competition rather than family? What did I owe a company that took my innovation and dedication for granted? The next morning, I requested a meeting with my father. When I entered his office, I was surprised to find Ryan there as well. "I've received an offer from Evergreen Construction," I said without preamble, placing Catherine's folder on the desk. Harold's face darkened as he glanced at the papers. "Catherine Wilson is poaching my staff now? This is completely unacceptable. She's offering me 5 times my current salary for my expertise, Dad. Not for company secrets, not for client lists, for my knowledge and skills. The same knowledge and skills you've repeatedly refused to compensate fairly." Ryan snorted. "So this is about money after all. I told you, Dad. Jake's just out for himself." I turned to my brother. "This isn't about money, Ryan. It's about respect. It's about recognition for 10 years of building this company while you were partying through college. It's about watching someone with 0 experience waltz into the position I earned through years of hard work, just because he has the right last name." "You're jealous," Ryan shot back. "You always have been. Dad saw something in me that he doesn't see in you, leadership potential." I laughed. though there was no humor in it. Leadership? You've been CEO for 4 months, and we've already lost 2 major clients, our best project manager and our most experienced superintendent. Our safety record is slipping, our bids are being rejected, and our cash flow is a disaster. That's not leadership, Brian. That's entitlement and incompetence. My father stood, his face flushed with anger. That's enough. I won't have you speaking to your brother that way. If you take this job with Evergreen, you're turning your back on this family. Is that what you want? I looked at him steadily. I think you turned your back on me first, Dad, when you decided that Ryan deserved everything I'd worked for without having to earn any of it. I've given this company a decade of my life. I've sacrificed higher pay, better opportunities, and countless evenings and weekends. And after all that, you still couldn't see my value. Catherine Wilson saw it immediately. So you're leaving, he said, his voice flat. Yes. I'm accepting Evergreen's offer. I'll give 2 weeks' notice, provide thorough documentation on all my projects, and do everything possible to ensure a smooth transition. That's more consideration than either of you showed me. Ryan stood as well, pointing a finger at me. If you walk out that door, don't expect to come crawling back when you fail. I smiled sadly. I'm not the one who's failing, Ryan. Look around you. Everything that made this company successful is falling apart under your leadership. I'm just choosing not to go down with the ship. I left the office with my head high, though my heart was heavy. On the way out, I stopped by my mother's house to explain my decision. Diana cried, but not for the reasons I expected. I'm crying because I'm proud of you, she said, surprising me. Your father and brother may not see your worth right now, but I do. Sometimes the hardest part of loving someone is letting them make their own mistakes. They'll learn, eventually. I hoped she was right, though I had my doubts. My final 2 weeks at Grayson Construction were tense, but productive. I documented everything meticulously, briefed the remaining team members on ongoing projects, and even created detailed guides for processes that had previously existed only in my head. If the company failed after I left, it wouldn't be because I hadn't tried to give them the tools to succeed. On my last day, Marcus, Stephanie, who came back specially for the occasion, and several other colleagues took me out for drinks. The mood was bittersweet, celebration mixed with genuine concern for those staying behind. We'll be fine, Marcus assured me, though his expression suggested otherwise. And if we're not, well, put in a good word for us at Evergreen, would you? I promised I would. As I looked around at the faces of people I had worked alongside for years, I felt a surge of emotion. These were my people, my team. Leaving them behind was perhaps the hardest part of my decision. But sometimes, I reminded myself, you have to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. I couldn't save Grayson Construction if I was suffocating under the weight of familial expectations and professional disrespect. It was time to breathe free. My first day at Evergreen Construction was a revelation. Catherine Wilson personally introduced me to the executive team, clearly communicating my role and the value she expected me to bring. I was given a spacious office, a capable assistant, and immediate access to the company's project database. We want you to hit the ground running, Catherine explained. Your reputation precedes you, and we have clients specifically asking if you'll be involved in their projects. The culture shock was immediate and profound. At Evergreen, ideas were evaluated on their merits, not on who proposed them. Meetings were efficient, decisions data-driven, and success was celebrated regardless of whose initiative it was. When I suggested modifications to their sustainability practices based on my experience, Catherine not only listened, she implemented them within the week and gave me full credit at the next company meeting. My first consulting project was for Meridian Properties, a developer I had previously worked with at Grayson. They had been disappointed by the declining quality of work after Ryan took over, and were eager to work with me again. The project, a mixed-use development with ambitious sustainability goals, was exactly the kind of challenge I thrived on. With Evergreen's resources and Catherine's full support, I delivered a proposal that exceeded Meridian's expectations. We won the contract, worth $20 million, over 3 other competitors. At the celebration dinner, Catherine raised her glass to me. To Jake Grayson, whose expertise just added 20 million to our bottom line. This is just the beginning. Over the next few months, I helped Evergreen secure 4 more major contracts, all in the sustainable building space that I had pioneered at Grayson. Each success felt like a validation of my decision to leave. Each expression of appreciation from Catherine and the team a balm for the wounds left by my father's and brother's betrayal. Meanwhile, news from Grayson Construction grew increasingly dire. Marcus called me regularly, keeping me updated on the company's downward spiral. Ryan's casino development gambit had failed spectacularly. They had spent hundreds of thousands on planning and permitting, only to be rejected by the Gaming Commission due to insufficient experience in the sector. "He's blaming you, of course," Marcus reported during one of our calls. "Says you sabotaged the application before you left. Your dad seems to believe him." I sighed, unsurprised but still disappointed. That's ridiculous. I documented everything meticulously before I left, including my concerns about that project. "Facts don't seem to matter much these days," Marcus replied grimly. "Ryan fired 3 more people yesterday, including Jerry from estimating. Says we need to trim the fat to improve profitability." Jerry had been with the company for 12 years and had a nearly perfect record for accurate estimates. Firing him wasn't trimming fat, it was cutting muscle. The situation worsened when Grayson's largest active project, a 6-story office building, experienced structural issues due to substandard materials from Ryan's college friend's supply company. The client halted construction and demanded extensive testing and remediation, costs that weren't budgeted and that the company could ill afford. 2 more major clients canceled contracts after this news broke, unwilling to risk similar quality issues. Grayson's reputation, which I had spent years building, was crumbling in a matter of months. Harold finally began to assert himself again, trying to right the ship, but the damage was extensive. Ryan, rather than accepting responsibility, lashed out at everyone around him, blaming the employees, the market conditions, and especially me. "Your brother is telling anyone who will listen that you stole proprietary information and gave it to Evergreen," Marcus told me during another update. "Says that's why they're winning all the bids lately." "That's defamation," I replied, anger rising. "Evergreen is winning because they have experienced leadership and a solid team, not because of any stolen information. Everything I've brought to them is my own expertise and industry knowledge." Catherine, when I shared these accusations with her, was furious but unsurprised. "This is what happens when incompetent leaders fail," she said. "They look for scapegoats rather than solutions. Don't worry, your reputation in this industry is solid. No one who matters believes those accusations." She was right. Far from damaging my standing, Ryan's accusations only made him look desperate in the eyes of industry peers. Several contractors and developers reached out to me directly, expressing support and, in some cases, interest in working with Evergreen now that I was part of the team. The final blow to Grayson Construction came when their flagship green building project, one I had designed and initiated, before leaving, experienced catastrophic systems failures due to improper installation and inadequate oversight. The client, a major technology company, publicly terminated the contract and announced they would be seeking damages for delays and remediation costs. This disaster made local business news, with industry analysts pointing to the leadership changes at Grayson as the likely cause of the quality control issues. Ryan's inexperience and the exodus of experienced staff were cited as contributing factors. The article didn't mention me by name, but anyone familiar with the situation would know I was the departed executive they were referring to. Harold finally called me directly, 6 months after I had left. His voice sounded older, tired in a way I had never heard before. "Jake," he said without preamble, "we need to talk." I agreed to meet him for coffee at a neutral location, curious but wary about his intentions. When I arrived, I was shocked by his appearance. He had lost weight, his face was drawn, and the confident posture I had always associated with him was gone, replaced by the slumped shoulders of a defeated man. "I made a mistake," he said after we had settled with our drinks. The admission, so simple yet so unexpected, momentarily left me speechless. Several mistakes, actually. "I'm listening," I replied, careful to keep my tone neutral. "Ryan wasn't ready. I see that now. I wanted so badly for him to succeed that I ignored all the warning signs, and in the process, I lost my best asset, you. The acknowledgement was gratifying, but it came months too late. The damage to Grayson Construction's reputation and finances was severe, possibly irreparable, and the damage to our family relationships might be even harder to fix. The company is in trouble, Jake. Serious trouble. We might not make payroll next month. The bank is threatening to call our loans. We need you back. There it was, the real purpose of this meeting. Not just an apology, but a plea for rescue. What does Ryan say about this? I asked. Harold looked down at his coffee. He's struggling. Blames everyone but himself, of course. But he knows we need help. He knows we need you. 6 months ago, I might have jumped at this chance for validation. Now, secure in my position at Evergreen, and finally receiving the recognition and compensation I deserved, I felt no urgency to rush back into the family drama. I need time to think about this, Dad. And I need to talk to Catherine. I have commitments at Evergreen that I can't just abandon. He nodded, looking disappointed but not surprised. I understand, but please don't take too long. We're running out of time. As I drove back to my office at Evergreen, I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to let Grayson Construction fail, a vindictive impulse I wasn't proud of but couldn't entirely suppress. Another part remembered the employees who had been like family, the legacy my father had built, and the years of my life invested in the company's success. When I shared the situation with Catherine, her response surprised me. "I've been expecting this," she said calmly. "In fact, I've been considering a more strategic approach than simply hiring you away from them." "What do you mean?" "Grayson Construction has problems, but it also has assets, client relationships, specialized equipment, and a history in the community. What if Evergreen were to acquire Grayson? It would give us additional capacity, eliminate a competitor, and potentially provide a solution that preserves jobs and family relationships." The idea was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of choosing between my current success and my family legacy, there might be a way to integrate them. "Would you want me to lead the merged operation?" I asked. Catherine nodded. "That would be the plan. You know both companies. You have the expertise, and you've proven your leadership capabilities here. It would be the perfect solution if your father and brother can accept it. And that, I knew, would be the real challenge. Could Harold Grayson, proud founder and patriarch, accept selling his company to a competitor? Could Ryan Grayson, failed CEO but still the golden child, accept working under his older brother? I was about to find out. 6 months after leaving Grayson Construction, I found myself sitting across from my father and brother in Evergreen's conference room, Catherine Wilson beside me. The proposal we had prepared was thorough. Evergreen would acquire Grayson Construction as a subsidiary, retain most of the employees, honor existing contracts, and maintain the Grayson name for certain market segments where its reputation remained strong. I would oversee both companies, effectively becoming CEO of the merged operation. Ryan would be offered a position in business development, a role better suited to his people skills than executive leadership. Harold would transition to an advisory role, providing historical knowledge and maintaining relationships with long-standing clients. The terms were generous, given Grayson's precarious financial position. Without this lifeline, bankruptcy was likely within months. Harold looked tired but thoughtful as he reviewed the documents. Ryan, predictably, was less composed. "This is humiliating," he snapped, pushing the papers away. "You want us to surrender everything to our biggest competitor and demote me to a sales position? After everything I've done for the company?" I bit back the obvious retort about exactly what he had done for the company. This wasn't the time for recriminations. "This isn't surrender, Ryan," I said calmly. "It's survival. Grayson Construction can't continue as it is. You know the financial situation better than anyone. This arrangement preserves jobs, maintains the Grayson name in the industry, and gives everyone a fresh start. A fresh start where you're in charge and I'm taking orders from my big brother," he countered bitterly. "I believe I've demonstrated the ability to lead effectively," I replied, keeping my voice level, both at Grayson and at Evergreen. "This isn't about family hierarchy. It's about putting the right people in positions where they can succeed. My father, who had been quietly listening to this exchange, finally spoke. "Ryan, Jake is right. We don't have many options left. The company is 6 weeks from insolvency, and no bank will extend more credit given our current situation. This may not be what we wanted, but it's the best outcome available to us now." Ryan looked at him in disbelief. "So, you're taking his side? After everything?" "This isn't about sides," Harold responded, suddenly looking every one of his 67 years. "This is about reality. I made a mistake, son. I put you in a position you weren't prepared for, and I ignored Jake's contributions because I wanted so badly for you to succeed." The admission seemed to deflate Ryan completely. For perhaps the first time in his life, he was confronting the consequences of failure without anyone sheltering him from them. "What choice do I have?" he asked finally, his voice small. "You can walk away," I said gently. "No one would blame you. Or you can stay, learn the business properly this time, and contribute in ways that play to your strengths rather than exposing your weaknesses. The choice is yours, but I hope you'll stay. Despite everything, you're still my brother." Catherine, who had remained tactfully silent during our family drama, spoke up. "The business development role we're proposing for Ryan is crucial to our growth strategy. With proper mentoring and clear expectations, it could be an excellent fit for someone with his education and interpersonal skills." Her diplomatic framing gave Ryan a way to accept the new arrangement without losing face completely. After more discussion, both he and my father agreed to the acquisition terms. Legal teams would handle the details, but the framework was established. Grayson would become part of Evergreen, with me at the helm of the combined operation. As we concluded the meeting, Harold asked to speak with me privately. Catherine graciously offered her office, leaving us alone. "I owe you an apology, Jake," he began, the words clearly difficult for him. "I didn't see what was right in front of me for years. Or maybe I did see it but couldn't admit it to myself." "What do you mean?" I asked. "You're a better businessman than I ever was. More innovative, more forward-thinking, better with people. I was threatened by that, I think. And when Ryan came along, so much like me in temperament but without your talents, I convinced myself he was the right choice. I wanted to believe the company needed someone like me, not someone like you." The admission was more self-aware than I had expected from my father, who had rarely acknowledged his own limitations in all the years I'd known him. "Thank you for saying that," I replied, genuinely moved. "But the company did need someone like you 30 years ago, when you built it from nothing. Different phases require different leadership styles. That's not a judgment on either of us." He nodded, considering this. "Maybe that's true, but I still should have recognized your value. Should have listened when you asked for the recognition and compensation you deserved. My pride cost us all dearly. We can't change the past," I said, "but we can build something better going forward. That's what I intend to do." We embraced awkwardly before rejoining the others. It wasn't a perfect resolution. There were still hurts that would take time to heal, trust that would need to be rebuilt. But it was a beginning. In the months that followed, the merger progressed more smoothly than I had anticipated. Most Grayson employees were relieved to have job security again, and many expressed satisfaction at having me back in a leadership role. Clients who had been hesitant to work with Grayson under Ryan's management returned when they heard I would be overseeing their projects. Ryan, to his credit, applied himself to learning the business development role with more humility than I had expected. Without the pressure of trying to be a CEO, he actually showed genuine talent for client relations and networking. We would never be best friends, but we were finding a way to be brothers and colleagues. My father gradually adjusted to his advisory role. There were occasions when he chafed at not being in charge, but more often, he seemed relieved to be free of the daily pressures of leadership. He and I established a weekly lunch meeting where he could share his experience and perspective, allowing him to feel valued while keeping him connected to the business. As for me, I found that success was the best revenge, though revenge no longer seemed like the right word. I was building something valuable, something that honored the best parts of my father's legacy while creating space for innovation and growth. The recognition and respect I had sought for so long finally came naturally with the position I now held. 1 year after the merger, At our annual company gathering, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The betrayal that had once seemed devastating had ultimately led to personal growth, professional advancement, and even the healing of family wounds I had thought permanent. Standing before the combined teams of Evergreen and Grayson, now fully integrated under my leadership, I shared some of these reflections. Sometimes the path to where we belong isn't straight, I told them. Sometimes we have to leave what's familiar to find what's right. But that doesn't mean the journey wasn't worthwhile, or that what we built along the way wasn't valuable. Looking out at the faces of my team, including Marcus, Stephanie, and Thomas, all rehired after the merger, I felt a sense of accomplishment deeper than any I had known before. This was success on my terms, earned through capability rather than conferred by birth. After the gathering, Catherine approached me with a smile. "You've exceeded even my high expectations," she said. "The merged company is stronger than either was separately. That's the mark of true leadership." Her words reminded me of something my mother had said during our most recent Sunday dinner, a tradition we had recently reinstated. "You had to leave to be recognized," Diana observed. "Sometimes that's the only way people see our true value, in our absence." It was a bittersweet truth, but one I had come to accept. My father and brother had needed to experience failure without me before they could appreciate what I brought to the company. My own journey had required stepping away from the familiar to discover my full potential. Now, as I look back on those difficult days, I realized that what seemed like betrayal was actually liberation. Being denied what I thought I wanted opened the door to something better. Being undervalued pushed me to prove my worth in ways that left no room for doubt. The lesson wasn't that family business is inherently flawed, or that recognition must come from outside to be meaningful. Rather, it was that our worth isn't determined by others' ability to see it. Value exists independently of recognition, and sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to walk away from those who cannot or will not acknowledge what we bring to the table. If you've ever felt undervalued in your family, workplace, or relationships, I hope my story resonates with you. Sometimes walking away is the strongest move you can make, not as an act of vengeance, but as an affirmation of self-worth. Have you ever had to leave something behind to find your true path? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if my journey spoke to you. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your value doesn't diminish just because someone fails to see it.